Before you watch this case study, I want you to understand a couple things. One, this was recorded while she is still a senior in high school, the student. So this was before decisions came out. So now I'm just here giving an update. The school she got into a school where the average high school GPA for a student at that school is a 4.1. That being said, she had nothing close to a 4.1. In fact, we're not even going to mention her name because she doesn't want to show, she's embarrassed about her grades in the past. But despite that, we still got her into an amazing university. Now, a couple things you should also learn from this case study is how she really built her personal brand. She has experience with other college counselors, so you can learn what to expect from other college counselors or college admissions coaches as well. And you should also learn how she leveraged her personal brand to build relationships and get experiences in her space. So I hope you enjoy listening to this, and there's going to be a ton of value and learning you can make from this recording. Enjoy.
What would you like to share about what was happening before we started working together?
Yeah, for sure. So beforehand, I think the biggest thing to note down is that my plans for college were completely different. My career plans were completely different. I was interested in law rather than in business. And so I think I just kind of went for what sounded good and what seemed good on paper. But instead of that, I feel like Keerthan really helped me understand what my passions and strengths are. And so I feel like I'm performing much better now that I have leaned into what strengths I have. And yeah, that's been pretty good. And as for where I was before, my activities were kind of all over the place, which was, I think, my biggest problem. And Keerthan really helped me have more of a focused effort, which shows my strengths. It shows what talents I have, which was incredibly important. And I think it strengthened my application tenfold. And yeah, I think my academic situation as well wasn't completely great, but I feel like even with that, Keerthan had some great tips and all. So I think that improved things a lot for me.
A lot of things improved for you.
Yeah.
You're one of the very few people I know that got a 5 on the AP English test.
Yeah.
Not many of my friends in high school were able to do that. Only one person I know was able to do that. So kudos to you. Kudos to you. Was there anything that we'd done together that made you realize some of these things, like your activities needed to change, your actual passions are something you should try to actually pursue because you were going to be more strong in that? What did I do that made you realize these things?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it was being completely honest about what my activities are looking like. I've had other college counselors as well, like Walter Kim. And in terms of his services, I feel like they were more focused on academics rather than the whole big picture. It was just focused on grades, numbers, get an A, get this, your transcript, your GPA, whatever. But I feel like activities are such an important boost to your application, your college essay, all of that. And so I feel like Keerthan was really somebody who's actually gone through the process recently, and he can cater more to kind of Bay Area students, which is, I think, so valuable. He was able to kind of give me specifically advice on what my activities are looking like, how impressive they seem. And on top of that, I was able to bounce back ideas with someone who kind of understands my thought process. And he was able to expand on my activities as well, which helped me a lot. And yeah, I think there's that. As for academics, I feel like he gave me study tips, which a fellow student understands. And so in terms of that, I improved a lot. When I went to Walter Kim, he was just kind of study more, study longer, wake up earlier, whatever. But Keerthan actually had effective study tips, which actually genuinely helped me.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I was able to help you. And that's a philosophy I really believe in. I don't believe in just do things to get into college. I believe do things that you yourself and the people around you would be proud of.
Yeah.
And get into college by extension.
Right.
As an extension of that.
Yeah.
I want to ask, would you be able to expand on who Walter Kim was? How did you end up working with him?
Yeah, so I'll expand on all of that, but first of all, Walter Kim was just someone my dad picked, and he was just kind of somebody that my dad felt like, he would give great advice and all. We went, and I instantly didn't really click with the advice it was because we had Bible sessions, right? And that's all a lot of money. But the whole time it was kind of your GPA, just he read a huge spreadsheet, and I expected to go into more things, but rather he was kind of focusing on the past. He was looking at numbers. He kept calculating past GPAs, things like that. instead of kind of focusing on what we can do in the future. So I felt like genuinely it was a waste of money. And my dad was pretty optimistic as well, but even later on, he kind of agreed that, hey, we kind of didn't get our money's worth. And all we did was kind of just get critique on our, the current student situation rather than advice on what can be done in the future, what activities can be done. And for Keerthan, that was also someone my dad selected, but it went much better. Obviously having this bad experience with college counselors, I wasn't expecting too much, to be honest, but getting started, I realized like, hey, he actually has genuinely good advice. I was getting more and more like positive. And beforehand, my activities didn't really yield many results. It was just kind of like the basic stuff, what everybody does. But now I feel like it's actually unique things that I myself would be proud of, something that, my passions align with. And so I think that's like the biggest thing Keerthan has given me.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just something your passions would align with. It's something cool to be able to talk in the future.
Yeah.
Like stuff you did is genuinely impressive, not only to a college, but to the person next to you, to the stranger next to you who's walking along, to the person you randomly meet in the elevator and you talk about the stuff you did. It's genuinely impressive. And I'm so glad I was able to get you to that point. Yeah. You were talking a lot about your dad, and you were talking about how your dad made you go to Walters Kim, and then he asked for you to check out your dad asked you to check out my consultation as well.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell the parents? Like, I'm sure they might have something to expect in their mind when they meet a consultant. Like, what would you tell them to expect instead?
Yeah, so I feel like one of the biggest things is that other college counselors that I've gone to have almost always given like a guarantee or a promise that made things seem really easy and like given shortcuts. Like, oh, we're going to make an awesome passion project for your application, that college counselors will love, or we're going to increase your GPA whenever, we're going to get you these classes, we're going to give you great extracurriculars, whatever it is. But I feel like those shortcuts aren't really, like, most of the time they don't exactly work. And I feel like Keerthan didn't have one of those. And I think that's what made him stand out to my dad, because he found that was different. And for me as well, like, a lot of times when you go to your first meeting with a college counselor, they're going to give you a template that they have for every single student. But for me, Keerthan kind of got to know me first, and my passions, my situation, all of that. And then he made a plan based off of that. And I remember, like, he took notes, whatever. He planned everything out really well. And so I felt like it was really customized rather than, just another person trying to sell off their services that they've like planned beforehand.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Yeah. And I do, as you were talking about the first session, something came to my mind is, I don't know if you remember, but as we were ending our first session, I said, I ended by saying, I can't guarantee anything. Yeah. I can't guarantee like you're going to get into the college that you hope to desire. I can't there's always a chance. There's a chance you're going to get into everything. There's a chance you're going to get into nothing. There's a chance you're only going to get into 1, 2, or 3. And it sucks that this process can be very unpredictable. All we can do is just do the best steps that we can do, and just be the person that do the things that we want to be proud of, and hopefully get in by extension, because I think a lot of students in these colleges, high top colleges, are not any better as people or as effective students in general compared to students in lower tier colleges. And I don't want to just send, I'm going to be harsh. I don't want to send stupid people to college. I don't want to send stupid people to college. I want to send people that they can continue to grow. I can be proud of them even when I'm not working with them in the future.
Yeah, and I think one of the most valuable is that even if my activities weren't impressive, or my transcript even wasn't impressive, like in terms of grades and all, you didn't just go ahead and say stupid. You see the potential and all of that. And I think you seeing that potential is so important, because you kind of built on that. And now things are like, my situation is so much better. My app is looking really good now that I'm going to my senior year, and you're providing me guidance to that process as well. So I don't know. I feel like it's just been really nice, and I feel like there's no guarantees, there's no fake promises, because a lot of college counselors are like, in my meetings with them, they go, do all of this and you're definitely gonna get in. But I feel like that's not how it works. Like, it's really random, and I feel like that transparency is something that Keerthan has, which is like really, I guess, special. And it's a lot it's a lot more genuine, and I feel like it's not any nonsense or like any like, it's not just him trying to sell a service. It's like more like actual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That
Yeah,
means a
of
lot.
course.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
We did a lot of things. I want to get back into it. What were the best things I made you do or recommend you to do? Like, what were the 1 or 2 things that really changed everything for you? And it's totally okay if you want to like be specific about what exactly you did and why.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like I said earlier, my activities weren't so impressive beforehand. They're average. They're stuff like everybody does in the Bay Area and outside of it. I mean, it was just really basic, nothing special, what everybody does. And so what happened was Keerthan kind of like listened to my interests. He listened to me talk, listened to things I'm good at and all of that. And he had me kind of focus on it and, keep growing those skills that I have. And from that, he also like gave me recommendations on things I would be good at. And the thing is, like, he's older than me, right? So he has so much more exposure, but also he's somebody that I can relate to, someone I can kind of understand. And so he has that viewpoint that I have as well, except he has that with more experience. So it's kind of like talking to kind of myself from the future, but it's not any like random stuff that a college counselor would tell you, like Walter Kim or anything like that. It's someone who would just kind of like give it to you straight, give you, the experience he has, what things he's witnessed that would be helpful to you. And I think that's really something that helped me. I feel like my extracurriculars got better like tenfold. They've been so much more impactful, so much more special, I guess, and unique. And it's not just like something he told me like, hey, like do this. He looked at my actual strengths. He looked at what I would be good at, and he helped me grow ideas from there. So I think that was really helpful for me. So to get more specific, the thing that he told me to do was actually just kind of, first of all, in the field that I decided to go into, business. That's another big thing. I was interested in law beforehand, but he helped me realize, like, just because it looks good on paper doesn't mean it's the right choice. And so I went into business instead. But then again, it's a big change halfway through high school, right? And my application still looked like pretty impressive, extracurriculars and all. But yeah, what he had me do, he wanted me to talk to like professionals, and he gave me the amazing idea of starting my own podcast, which was like actually really nice. I've met so many people, gotten more than like 2,000 impressions, which has been so cool. And I've talked to so many people, made such a huge network. I'm constantly meeting new CEOs, business people, things like that every single day, even professors. And I feel like it's been so valuable for me because he didn't just give me his insight. He gave me ideas on how to tap into my field more and get connected with other people as well. So I feel like that was incredibly helpful for me. He didn't just kind of give me his advice. He gave me advice on how to get and make more opportunities for myself and tap into resources.
And as that is exactly what you did through starting the podcast, you were able to get the internship that you really ended up loving. Yeah. That was really impactful. Mm-hmm. You, through that internship, you were the only high schooler, you were all you were working with were people leaders and college students. Yeah. You were the only high schooler who was able to get that, and you were only able to do that through unorthodox ways that I recommended, such as one that I recommended, which was starting a podcast about business. And through that, you also were able to connect with other opportunities. For example, you're working on a pitch event right now for female aspiring entrepreneurs, which I didn't even recommend you to do. Yeah. That is something you got on your own. Right. So with the students I try to work with, I want to make sure that they're able to outgrow me. I don't want to continue to give them advice. I want to make sure at a certain point they have everything they need to move forward, get the opportunities on their own by building the proper foundation. So moving on from that, from all you learned, do you have any advice for high school students that are like a year or two younger than you?
I don't have too much, of course, because I'm still a high schooler, but after going to my senior year, there's a lot of things I've seen and all. I think one of the most important things, and this is something Keerthan gave to me along with many other things, but I think it was the biggest thing that changed everything for me. It was the fact that earlier on, before meeting him, I was kind of just doing everything I could. And it was nothing impressive, anybody can just apply to everything. I was thinking, hey, what's going to look good to colleges. It was not something I'd be impressed with or anything like that. It was just kind of like racking up position, like be president of this, be vice president of this, do this. But yeah, I feel like Keerthan was able to give me like a lot of advice on kind of like being specific with my skills and the things that I do. And so earlier on, it was nothing impressive. It was just a little bit of everything. And so, of course, I can talk about that, but I can't go into depth with anything because I never really did something that was so impressive, unique, something that no one really does. And so, like he said, he gave me some unorthodox ideas, but they're unique, they're helpful. And I feel like they're a lot more of something that I'm proud of, something that, I'm going to continue talking, I'm going to continue to work on through college. And not a lot of people can say that, like, oh, I'm going to continue doing this in college, but for me, I really found something I love. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is that you don't just kind of go for everything and think, hey, this is going to look good to college. Just think of what makes you excited and go for that. I think Keerthan taught me that. And I feel like it helped me so much, like looking at something I'm actually excited about because it gave me motivation to do better.
That's so glad. I'm so glad you were able to say that. And I guess to add on to what you're saying, in the end, all you're going to tell colleges are stories. When you write your essays, all you're going to tell in the end are stories while trying to brag about yourself through those stories.
Right.
You're not just going to write, oh, I was president of this, I was school president. Right. You're not going to just write that. Mm-hmm. Ideally, you have 350 words on each UC essay, 650 words on your personal statement. You're going to try to tell a story that connects with people while also telling the impressive things you did. Yeah. And if you go after things that are just checking boxes, you're only going to go wide.
Yeah.
You're never going to go deep.
Yeah.
And if you go deep into something,
mm-hmm.
you're going to have so many stories to tell. You're going to actually go through adversity, and that adversity is going to actually bring out real stories in you that really connect with other people.
Right.
And that makes it way easier for you to actually make an impact, whether it's in your admission statement or whether it's in connecting with other people in general and making more opportunities for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess starting to close off this conversation, mm-hmm. who would you think my consulting is for? Because I don't think every high school student is going to benefit from the things I tell them.
Right. I feel like, going back to what I said about, or talked about earlier, is that college counselors always kind of show an easy way. They're like, oh, do this and you're going to get in. Do this and you're guaranteed Ivy League admissions. It's not really like that at all. Like, I feel like Keerthan is really transparent, and that's one of the things that, is really helpful for me because you're putting in money, right? And that's valuable, but if you're not getting like your money's worth, if you're just kind of getting fooled the whole time, it's really not worth it. Keerthan's very transparent. If there's anything wrong, he critiques it, but he doesn't just focus on the bad things. He continues to give me advice on how I can improve my situation, and make it better, I guess, in general. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, like I said, like it's not going to be easy. You're not going to have shortcuts, but if you're willing to put in the work, Keerthan's a great guide, and he has great ideas. So he has exposure and all of that, and so he's a great guide to give you ideas and to bounce ideas off of. So he serves as kind of a guide, but obviously you're gonna have to do the work by yourself. Like he's not gonna do everything for you, but he's gonna be there along with you through the whole process and help you throughout it. But yeah, obviously you need to have your own drive. You need to have your own passions. You need to be a bit hardworking, of course, because he can't just get you into an Ivy League because he wants to or because you're paying him money. You have to have that drive. But I would say that he's a really great help, and he's been through the process, so he understands it.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found me as somebody who can be like a right-hand person to you,
right,
and guide you through everything that you need.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I was able to make that sort of impact on you. Yeah. So now I think it's time we start closing off this conversation. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for all the valuable insight. Thank you so much for all the kind words and recommendations. Thank you so much for being transparent. Yeah. It's very important that people have the right expectations in their mind, mm-hmm. and people don't do things just because other people are telling them to do that.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like it's so important. Like with a lot of college transfers, I've done things just because everyone else is talking about them. But with this, I was honestly this is just a simple conversation, like with a friend, or I was pretty honest. about how I felt and all. So yeah, I was pretty happy with it, but thank you for everything. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I hope other people, again, would benefit from this as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.